Ladies and gentlemen, one day, whether you're ready or not, you're going to meet 2026, and when that moment comes, it's not going to ask you what you meant to do. It's not going to care about your excuses. It's not going to be impressed by your potential. 2026 will simply look at you and say, "Show me what you did." Here's the uncomfortable truth: the future is not built in the future. It's built on ordinary days, boring routines, and hard decisions made when no one is watching. Most people think time changes things. It doesn't. People change things if they're willing to change themselves first. Right now, there are two versions of you walking toward 2026. One version hopes things work out. The other version decides they will. One version waits for confidence. The other builds confidence through action. One version avoids discomfort. The other understands that discomfort is the doorway to growth. And here's the key: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. If your standards say, "I'll do it when I feel ready," "I'll start when it's convenient," "I'll try one more time tomorrow," then 2026 will look exactly like every year before it. But if your standards say, "I do hard things even when I'm scared," "I keep promises to myself," "I act first and adjust later," then when you meet 2026, it won't feel like a surprise. It'll feel familiar, because you earned it. Let me be clear, this isn't about perfection. This is about ownership. Ownership of your time, ownership of your mindset, ownership of the voice in your head that tells you to quit, and choosing not to listen. Every day, life is asking you a question: who are you becoming? And every habit is an answer. Every excuse is an answer. Every action, or lack of action, is an answer. So when you finally meet 2026, don't let it be awkward. Don't let it be full of regret and what-ifs. Let it be a moment of respect, a moment where you can say, "I didn't wait, I didn't hide, I didn't waste the time I was given," because the future doesn't belong to the lucky. It belongs to the relentless. Start today, act today, become the person 2026 is proud to meet. 2026 doesn't owe you anything. Not your dreams, not your goals, not even the version of yourself you keep imagining late at night. Time is neutral. It doesn't reward effort, intention, or potential. It only delivers results based on what you repeatedly do. The future is not a prize handed out for wanting something badly enough. It's a mirror that reflects your daily habits, your quiet decisions, and the standards you tolerate when no one is watching. A lot of people believe that because they care, because they think about their goals, because they feel motivated from time to time, the future will somehow meet them halfway. It won't. Good intentions have never changed a life. Planning without execution is just mental comfort. You don't get credit for the workout you planned, the book you meant to read, or the discipline you promised yourself you'd start tomorrow. The only thing that counts is what you actually do, especially on the days when you're tired, distracted, or discouraged. Every habit you build is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every habit you avoid is also a vote. When you choose comfort over growth, you're training yourself to stay the same. When you lower your standards because it's easier, you're teaching yourself what you believe you deserve, and those lessons compound. They stack quietly over weeks, months, and years, until one day you wake up and call it luck or fate or circumstances, when in reality it was structure, it was consistency, it was the outcome of choices repeated long enough to become identity. The future doesn't care about your excuses, but it responds perfectly to your behavior. If you show up with discipline, it responds with progress. If you show up inconsistently, it responds with chaos. If you avoid discomfort, it responds with stagnation. There is no emotional judgment in that process, just cause and effect. The standards you set today decide the options you'll have later. What you tolerate now becomes your normal. What you repeat becomes your reality. You don't need more time. You need higher standards. You don't need better circumstances. You need better habits. The version of you that meets 2026 will not be shaped by motivation or hope, but by the small, unglamorous decisions you make every single day, especially when no one is clapping, no one is watching, and nothing feels exciting. Yet motivation is one of the most misunderstood forces in personal growth. People treat it like fuel, something they need before they can start moving. But motivation is unreliable. It shows up when things feel exciting and disappears the moment things get hard. If your progress depends on motivation, then your progress will always be temporary. What actually lasts is identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you do, especially when it's inconvenient. When you decide who you are, your behavior starts to align automatically. If you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, you don't debate whether to quit. You finish. If you identify as someone who trains, learns, or builds every day, you don't wait to feel inspired. You act because that's what someone like you does. Identity removes negotiation. It turns discipline from a struggle into a standard. Most people try to change outcomes before they change identity. They say, I want success, I want confidence, I want discipline, but they never make the internal decision to become the type of person those outcomes belong to. You don't become confident by waiting for proof. You become confident by acting before proof exists. You don't become disciplined by feeling ready. You become disciplined by keeping promises to yourself when it would be easier not to. Every action you take is either reinforcing the old identity or building a new one. Your brain is always watching your behavior and drawing conclusions. When you quit, it learns that quitting is acceptable. When you delay, it learns that comfort is the priority. But when you show up despite fear, fatigue, or doubt, you send a powerful signal to yourself, this is who I am now. That signal compounds faster than motivation ever could. Over time, actions stop feeling forced because they're aligned with your self-image. Identity-based growth is uncomfortable at first because it requires letting go of familiar excuses. You can't say that's just how I am anymore. You take responsibility for redefining yourself through action. That process is quiet and often lonely, but it's effective. The future version of you won't be built on bursts of inspiration, but on a deeply rooted belief system formed by repeated proof. You don't rise when you feel motivated. You rise when your identity no longer allows you to stay where you are. Growth has a cost, and that cost is discomfort. There is no path forward that avoids it. Every meaningful improvement in your life demands that you do something before you feel ready, before you feel confident, and often before you feel capable. Most people don't fail because they can't handle pain. They fail because they misunderstand it. They see discomfort as a warning sign, when in reality it's a signal that they're moving in the right direction. There are only two kinds of pain available to you. One is the pain of discipline, the early mornings, the hard conversations, the effort that doesn't immediately pay off. The other is the pain of regret, the quiet frustration of knowing you could have done more, the resentment that builds when you blame circumstances, the heavy realization that time passed and you stayed the same. Everyone pays one of these. The difference is when you pay and what you get in return. Discipline feels heavy at the beginning because it requires energy and focus. You have to override comfort. You have to choose the long-term outcome over the short-term relief. But discipline gets lighter over time because it creates momentum. Regret is the opposite. It feels light in the moment because you're avoiding effort, but it gets heavier with every missed opportunity. What starts as I'll do it later slowly turns into I wish I had started sooner. Avoiding pain doesn't protect you, it traps you. Comfort is seductive because it feels safe, but safety without growth becomes stagnation. When you repeatedly choose what's easy, you shrink your tolerance for challenge. Your world gets smaller, your confidence erodes, and even simple tasks begin to feel overwhelming. On the other hand, when you willingly step into discomfort, you expand your capacity. Hard things stop feeling impossible because you've trained yourself to endure and adapt. Pain, when chosen intentionally, becomes a teacher. It shows you where your limits are and then proves that those limits can move. It strips away illusions and replaces them with capability. You don't become stronger by avoiding what hurts. You become stronger by surviving it and realizing you're still standing. Growth is not about eliminating pain from your life, but about choosing the pain that builds you instead of the pain that slowly breaks you at the end of the day. Reality only responds to what you do. Not what you think about doing, not what you talk about doing, and not what you promise yourself you'll do someday. Execution is the only thing that turns intention into outcome. You can have the best ideas in the world, the clearest goals, and the strongest desires, but without action they remain theoretical. Life doesn't reward potential, it rewards follow-through. Most people overvalue thinking and undervalue doing. They wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of themselves. But clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You learn by moving, by making mistakes, by adjusting in real time. Waiting feels productive, but it's often just fear wearing a disguise. Execution cuts through that fear because it forces you into reality, where feedback is immediate and progress becomes measurable. Action is uncomfortable because it exposes you. When you execute, you risk failure, judgment, and uncertainty, but that exposure is also where growth happens. Every rep builds skill. Every attempt sharpens judgment. Momentum is created by doing something, anything, consistently enough that stopping feels harder than continuing. Small actions done daily outperform massive bursts of effort that fade after a week. Execution also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. That belief compounds into confidence, not the loud kind that needs validation, but the quiet kind rooted in evidence. When things get difficult, you don't spiral into doubt because you have proof that you act even when it's hard. That self-trust becomes a competitive advantage, especially when others hesitate. The truth is simple but brutal. Results don't care how smart you are, how passionate you feel, or how much you want it. They care about consistency. They care about reps. They care about whether you show up again tomorrow. Execution strips away fantasy and replaces it with progress, and over time, progress reshapes identity, opportunity, and outcome. The future doesn't respond to ideas, it responds to action repeated long enough to become undeniable.